Good afternoon, friends. Nayaswami Hriman here, and it is time for Whispers from Eternity. I'd like to chant a little bit with you. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. I will never forget thee. Ready? Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I chose that today because we're going to talk about listening. We're on number 189, Cure Spiritual Deafness and Make Me Listen to the Chorus of Noble Qualities. Well, deafness is something I know something about. So here's what he wrote. Paramahansa Yogananda. Can the blind man appreciate the light? Can the deaf man appreciate song? Oh, Father, how can a person intoxicated with the pleasures of the senses appreciate clearly the benefits of good health and the physical energy and mental clarity that comes with self-control? Father, how can the luxury satiated and sense surfeited hear the celestial peace-giving chorus of noble qualities in simple, humble, but spiritually rich souls? Bless us, that we may behold in the subtle, beautiful rays of good habits this truth, that virtue is far more attractive, invigorating, and satisfying than vice, and that it opens the way for us to hear thy guiding voice behind all other sounds. In Swami Kriyananda's book, Awaken to Superconsciousness, I'm sure he said it many times, but in that book, which we use as one of our textbooks for our meditation teacher training, he talks a lot about, one whole chapter, I believe, is devoted to meditation as the art of listening. I remember when I was a teenager and exploring different things, different ways of being and interacting, I went through a phase where I was determined to be a good listener. I even had people comment to that effect. I found it very effective for many reasons, but not least of which was to be able to have an intelligent conversation. If I listened carefully to what somebody else was saying, I could respond accurately and interestingly, perhaps, to and be part of that conversation, which for a teenager is I guess, an important thing. On the other hand, having my experience of hearing loss, I've sometimes wondered about myself. Have I not been a good listener, and therefore my hearing faculties have just, for lack of use, disappeared? Well, I don't know that that's how it actually works, but I do know this much. I've learned a lot from hearing loss. I've learned, for example, that we only really hear what we expect to hear. We only hear what we're able to hear. Think of it this way. If you don't speak the language, if you don't know the language of the person speaking to you, you're going to have a difficult time understanding what they said. Well, if you're not prepared to hear what somebody wants to say to you, you're probably likely to screen it out to some degree. Maybe later when you reflect on what they said, or in the conversation and in your reaction to what they said, you might even misquote them and they say, no, I didn't say that. I meant this. The faculty of listening, paying attention, calmly receiving is at the heart of an effective practice of meditation. But of course, here in this prayer demand, Yogananda is talking about more the refinement of consciousness, or the lack of refinement that takes place when we live too much for and in sense enjoyments. Interestingly enough, I wonder if you like beautiful music and you enjoy the sense enjoyment of hearing in that way, whether this dictum applies. I don't know, I just thought of that. But presumably, if you're listening to beautiful music, then that sensitizes you to higher octaves of astral hearing. Whereas if you were to listen to hard rock or heavy metal or whatever it is passes these days for that kind of music, that would be desensitizing, wouldn't it? Many people have hearing loss because they were exposed to too loud of sounds, including music, rock music and concerts, but also industrial sounds or sounds of warfare and that kind of thing. You see, the senses, I don't know the science of it, but the senses, like take your smell, you might smell something at first, but if you continue to be exposed to that fragrance, let's say, your awareness of it declines. All of the senses have a saturation to them. You might enjoy the first bite of ice cream, but if you're trying to finish a half a gallon of the stuff, by the time you get halfway through, you're pretty much numb, not just from the cold. And so the sending of our vitality and our attention too much, too often, and especially in satiation, overindulgence in any of the senses, it's as if the nerves get sort of frayed or worn, and their ability to function well actually decreases, as well as our enjoyment, diminishing returns and all of that. But what he's saying in this prayer demand is something much subtler. I mean, that's obvious, or fairly obvious for those who pay attention to how they use their bodies. But what he's saying is that the other side of it, the internalization of the senses, the removing or the pulling back of your awareness, known as prana, from the body, especially in daily meditation, which takes control and self-control, takes willpower, but it's also a very sensitive, subtle thing. The energization exercises help us to feel what energy is on its own basis, not when it's simply being used to accomplish something, but for its own sake. We get sensitized to life force, to energy. We begin to feel what's happening in our body, maybe illness coming on earlier than we might have otherwise, and be able to do something about it. We might be intuitively aware that we need to go see a doctor, for example. But in any case, what Yogananda is talking about is if we want to enjoy, if we want to experience, to be uplifted into a higher realm of consciousness and energy, we do that by dialing back the interest and attention and the frequency with which we look to the senses and sense enjoyments for satisfaction. That refinement of character, which is expressed in a person who's calm, who's able to listen, who looks thoughtfully, for example, speaks thoughtfully, and there isn't nervous and doesn't have nervous ticking habits. Someone of that mannerism is much more able to access intuitive information that might be triggered by something that's been said or going on, but because it's received calmly and without overreacting or reacting at all, it can trigger the input of the sixth sense, the sense of intuition. Intuition is strongly and perhaps best developed by the daily practice of meditation, particularly when we go beyond our pranayams, beyond our meditation techniques, and sit in the silence and be still. The heart is quiet, the breath is calm, the body relaxed, and the mind clear, like a clear blue sky. And in that period of meditation, we call stage 3 meditation. In that stage of sitting, we were actually, by virtue that it takes rapt attention, we're using kind of a muscle, a sixth sense muscle, and we're holding open, as it were, the casement window, wherein comes the breeze, the fresh breezes of inspiration, intuition, and the power of knowing God, the power of knowing things that are beyond the senses, beyond past common sense or past reason based on past experiences. And that's what Yogananda is talking about. It's such a more rich, fulfilling, creative, enjoyable, healthy life to live in a transcendent way, a way that isn't just wholly fixed on the body, the ego, and the personality, its protection and comfort as our main interest, our main self-identity. You can do this then. I would leave you with this simple thought to sort of telescope it into something practical. For today, perhaps for the next week or so, try practicing listening. As Swami Kriyananda would sometimes say to us, you hear a dog barking off in the distance, or the wind through the trees. Imagine that that is a message for you, that God is speaking to you in all the different sounds that you hear. Somebody once complained to me about the sounds of the city and how ugly it was and disturbing. And I just said, listen to that great symphony of life. All of those sounds are projections from this vibrant sound of Om. And when I first came to Linwood, Washington, north of Seattle, from Ananda Village in the foothills of the Sierras, our little apartment was quite near the freeway. And oh my God, the freeway. I was used to just pure silence out in the country until I decided that that roar of the freeway was really the sound of Om. And then I found I could listen to it blissfully and fall to sleep without being distracted or disturbed by that sound. So listen up, my friends. Meditation and life is about the art of listening, which is to say, feeling on a quiet, calm, non-reactive, subtle level. Listen up. Be good now. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same station. Signing off from